Hey guys, tonight we tiptoe, literally, into the stone corridors of a medieval castle, a place where your breath fogs in your beard and every creak of the floorboards feels like a diplomatic incident. You're here on a royal invitation, but not for a feast or a duel. No, your fate was sealed the moment someone heard you snore through the thatched-in walls 2 towns back. Now you stand at the castle gates. They're enormous and unnecessarily intimidating. 2 oaken slabs banded with iron, the kind that would survive a battering ram but quiver slightly at the mention of bedtime. The drawbridge creaks down like a reluctant eyelid. Behind it, torchlight flickers across stone so cold it makes your kneecaps consider turning around. You're welcomed inside with a whisper. Literally, the steward leans in and says, "Keep your footsteps soft." His breath smells like fennel and fear. It's only then that you remember the rumor. The thing the woman at the inn muttered while handing you a roll. "Best not breathe too deep in the Duke's hall. They'll think you've got thunder lungs." You laughed. You're not laughing now. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The steward leads you through the outer bailey, past a chicken coop with surprisingly judgmental poultry, and into the main keep. The air inside is warmer, but not by much. The walls are stone, and the windows narrow slits. You already sense this is a place where comfort is viewed with suspicion. A bell tolls in the distance, not loudly, just one note muffled, as if even time is trying not to disturb anyone. You're brought to your sleeping quarters. There's a moment, just a flicker of relief, when you think it might be private. It is not. The chamber you enter smells like rushes, onions, and the kind of feet that have seen decades of leather. 8 straw mattresses lie on the floor. One's already occupied by a man with a waxed beard and suspiciously clear nostrils. He eyes you the way a cat watches a squirrel, with polite anticipation and deep-rooted judgment. You set down your things, quietly. Then comes the form. Yes, a form. The steward hands you a parchment titled Nightly Respiration Acknowledgement. You must sign it to confirm you'll not disturb fellow guests with any oral exhalations exceeding the reasonable hum of sleep. You blink. He hands you a quill. The wax-beard man clears his throat. Quietly but intentionally, you scribble your name. That's when he speaks. You snore? It's not a question. It's a threat disguised as curiosity. You freeze. What's the right answer? Lie, he'll report you. Tell the truth, he'll definitely report you. You mumble something about seasonal congestion. He nods once, meaningfully, and pulls a small bell from under his blanket. "In case I need to summon the steward," he says. You ask if that's common. "Oh, yes. Last month they removed a man for purring in his sleep." Purring. You try not to breathe. The steward, still hovering, hands you a second parchment. This one includes the snore hierarchy. It's a chart, a very detailed one. Level Y, whisper breath, tolerated. Level 2, throat wind monitor. Level 3, humming hog, reported. Level V, Druidic honk, immediate removal. Level V, siege dragon, may be considered treasonous depending on regional laws. At the bottom, someone's written in delicate ink, "All decibel readings subject to steward discretion." You ask where you're sleeping. He points to a mattress by the door. Right under a draft and beside what appears to be a chamber pot that no one has emptied since the last harvest. You nod politely, because what else can you do? You lie down, and that's when it begins. The breathing. 8 people, 8 wildly inconsistent rhythms. Someone near the fire is wheezing. Another exhales in short bursts like a startled rabbit. The wax-beard man, he doesn't move at all. You suspect he trained with monks. And then, faint but undeniable, you hear it, your own nose whistle. You try to adjust your position. It worsens. You panic slightly and roll the other way. It now sounds like a sheep learning to play a flute. Someone coughs. Someone else mutters, "Level 2." Your blood goes cold. You fake a coughing fit to cover it. Classic tactic, doesn't work. The waxbeard rings his bell. The steward appears. So quietly you're convinced he materialized. Problem? Potential level 2. The steward inspects your posture, your blanket. He asks you to recreate the sound. You refuse. He nods and writes non-cooperative on his parchment. The waxbeard smirks. You lie back down, trying to control your own breath like a suspicious windpipe might betray your entire lineage. Eventually, you drift into half-sleep. But the moment your muscles loosen and your throat forgets its place, the nose flute returns. Only now it's louder, and everyone hears it. Someone gasps. Someone sits up and says, "That's a level 3 if I've ever heard one." You are now marked. The steward returns. He whispers something into a small brass horn. A new parchment arrives. It's stamped with the castle's seal. Summons to the Hall of Nightwatchers. You sigh, too loudly. The waxbeard nods with vindication, and you realize you're no longer just a guest. You're a suspect. In the war on snoring, you don't get much sleep that night. Not because of the draft, not because of the suspiciously damp spot beneath your straw mattress, and certainly not because you're at ease. Oh no, the air here is thick with scrutiny. Every exhale feels monitored, every twitch recorded in some steward's midnight ledger. You lie there, eyes wide, ears open, wondering how a single nose whistle could spiral into full-blown persecution. But this is castle life now. Not a romantic blur of feasts and velvet, but a nightly performance of involuntary silence. And you're failing the audition. At dawn, though time here moves like syrup in winter, you're awakened not by roosters or bells, but by the ceremonial unrolling of parchment. It's loud, dramatic, designed to let everyone know that someone's night has been investigated. You sit up. A young scribe, pale as milk and twice as nervous, stands in the corridor holding a scroll almost as tall as himself. He clears his throat. On behalf of the Hall of Nightwatchers, I summon the guest quartered in Straw Pile 7, recorded under the name Likely Whistler. That's you. The other guests glance without glancing. Waxbeard gives a smug exhale that sounds like someone petting a goose backwards. You're escorted to the main hall. The stones feel colder now, narrower. The corridor tightens the farther you walk, like the castle itself is preparing to exhale you. Your guide, a steward in teal robes with eyes like undercooked onions, says nothing. At one point, you pass a servant scrubbing the wall. There's nothing on it, just a stone surface. You want to ask why she's doing that, but you're beginning to understand. Here, everyone does something weird to avoid being accused of something worse. You arrive at the Great Hall of Nightwatchers. It's not actually great. It's shaped like a wine bottle and smells like damp parchment. At the far end sit 7 individuals in identical cloaks, each embroidered with a closed eye. Their leader, a man with a beard shaped like a quill pen, taps his finger once against a bell. "Proceed, no one," he says. The young scribe reads your charges. Level Hoarser nasal disturbance. Suspected throat whistle harmonics. Failure to maintain assigned breath volume. Refusal to cooperate during midnight assessment. You try to speak, you really do. But the silence in the room is sacred, weaponized. One peep, and you fear it'll be turned into another scroll with your name at the top. The leader raises a hand. We do not punish the breath, he says. We only question its intentions. You nod slowly, which seems safe. They show you a chart. It's color-coded. There's a blue zone, harmless size, a yellow zone, socially destabilizing wheezing, and then the red, the resonant rebellion tier. That's where you apparently landed. One of the judges points to your section. We haven't seen a spiral snore like this since the Baron of Left Wing 3D. Had to sleep in the stables after that, another mutters. Died there, a third adds, like it's a bedtime story. You begin to speak. With respect, Intent, says the Quillbeard, is a curious beast. Were you thinking rebellious thoughts as you slept? You blink. I don't think I thought anything. A likely defense. Another unrolls a parchment titled Echo Tracings. Apparently, they mapped the reverberation patterns of suspect snores. Yours allegedly bounced 3 times in one breath and startled a tapestry moth. Unforgivable, someone murmurs. You're issued a warning. Not a fine, not yet. Instead, you're reassigned to a shared chamber in the West Wing. Smaller, tighter, closer to the livestock pens. The walls are lined with curtains of suspicion, actual curtains stitched with embroidered frowns. You arrive to find 4 other beds, none of which look like they have ever hosted peaceful dreams. There's a woman who mutters softly in 3 languages while counting her own breaths. A knight in partial armor, already asleep, wearing a device that pulls his lower jaw forward with straps and hooks. It clicks every 10 seconds. And in the far corner, a child, probably 12, wearing a sign around his neck that says Level 2 from birth. No one makes eye contact. You unpack. Your blanket has been replaced with a stiff wool mat bearing a stitched message. Restraint is royal. You lie down. Try to breathe. Try not to hum. Try not to exist too audibly. And still, your sin is in the shape of your lungs. You breathe and the air bends wrong. It spirals. It whispers. It calls attention. In the middle of the night, a whisper steward appears at the foot of your bed. You sit bolt upright. I haven't made a sound. He holds up a brass funnel. Routine echo audit. He places the funnel to the wall, listens for a full minute, and then vanishes into the dark like a highly disappointed ghost. The child in the corner opens one eye and hisses, "He never sleeps. He used to be a bard." You nod. Somewhere in the hallway, someone sneezes. Everyone stiffens. That's when it hits you. This isn't about volume. It's about control. This castle, it's a monument to ordered breath. A place where the illusion of quiet is worth more than gold. And snoring? Snoring is chaos incarnate. By morning, a new chart has appeared in the corridor. It's labeled Probable Nighttime Disturbers Updated Rankings. You're third. Below a man named Rollo, who apparently hums through his teeth when dreaming about turnips. You look for a steward, any steward. Instead, you find a small parchment folded into your blanket. A message written in rushed ink. They can hear the quiet ones too. Meet me at the tapestry stairs after night bell. You tuck it away. Because maybe, just maybe, you're not the only one who dreams of breathing freely again. You spend the entire day pretending to be deeply, conspicuously awake. You walk with energy. You blink too often. You hum a vaguely motivational tune about goose herding just to prove you're not a threat. It's exhausting. The irony isn't lost on you. Nothing makes you feel sleepier than being watched for signs of sleepiness. The castle is a hive of silent tension. Every corridor feels like it's listening. Even the suits of armor seem to lean in as you pass, like they're reporting to some unseen authority. You notice strange things. Chalk marks on doors, candles burned exactly halfway down, odd patterns scratched into banisters. A steward sweeps a hallway not for dust, but for vibes. He holds up a scrap of lint, sniffs it, and writes possible drowse presence on a scroll. Then you're summoned again, this time to the Great Hall of Nightwatchers, but not for judgment. For orientation, apparently all new respiratory risks, that's you, must attend a short educational session on castle sound discipline. The invitation is polite, with an RSVP box pre-ticked for attendance expected. You show up to find 13 other poor souls sitting on hard benches. A chalkboard reads, Nocturnal Compliance, Sleep, Sound, in You. At the front stands a woman in violet robes, wearing a pin shaped like a feather inside a padlock. She clears her throat. Good morning, Risk Group. Let us begin. She launches into what must be the driest lecture since oat tax protocol. You learn that there is now an official decibel tolerance for castle sleepers. 7. What's 7? No one knows. But apparently someone with a feathered hood and too much time decided 7 is the sound of maximum acceptable dreams. She continues. There are 3 approved methods for controlling disruptive exhalations. The pillow clamp. Hug the pillow tightly across your face. If you wake up gasping, congratulations. You've done it right. The chest stone. A small, smooth rock placed upon the sternum to discourage deep inhalation, allegedly based on monastic traditions. You're pretty sure it's just mean. The drowsing cone. A pointed woolen hat designed to redirect breath out the top like a chimney. Popular among nobles with pointy aesthetics. You glance around. One man is nodding furiously. His cone hat is already in place. Someone else whispers, I thought the cone was banned for spiraling. The instructor shoots a glare. Only if worn upside down. Afterwards, you're given a certificate. Preemptive breather, Tier 2. It comes with a sash. You do not wear the sash. Back in the corridor, a steward glances at your certificate and nods. You'll be in the logs now, less random checks. You sigh with relief. Mistake. He narrows his eyes. Sighing is regulated outside the repose alcoves. You apologize. He notes it down. You hate everything. Later, you make your way to the tapestry stairs. It's a forgotten part of the keep, buried behind faded wool depictions of someone winning a pig in battle. You duck behind the pig tapestry and find a narrow staircase lit by one flickering torch. And someone's already there. A figure in a patchy cloak, face half hidden by a hood. They whisper, You got the note. You nod. They look around. We're the Night Whispers. We've been tracking snore laws since the second queen fell asleep during the crowning of her own cousin. They gesture for you to follow. The stairs lead down, farther than they should. The air gets warmer, dustier, filled with the scent of straw and rebellion. Eventually you reach a room, not big, not flashy, just a storage chamber that's been converted into a haven for the misaligned breathers. Soft mats, old quilts, candles melted sideways, a kettle heating over coals. This is the hall of reclaimed slumber, your guide says. We've been collecting stories, injustice. We've mapped the patterns of persecution. They show you a scroll. It's a diagram of the castle, covered in red ink. Each mark, a person removed, fined, or relocated because of noise made in sleep. It's A lot of marks. You sit on a mat. Another person hands you a cup of tea. Herbal keeps you alert, sort of. A third pulls out a box of confiscated items. Chin straps, nose cages, tiny bells used to frame people by dropping them mid-snore. They even have a replica snore tribunal robe used in training. One member wears it ironically while dramatically reenacting trials. Do you deny the wheeze that rippled through our wine? You laugh, for the first time since arriving. Then you learn the serious bit. There's a registry, your guide says, a private one, maintained by the Nightwatchers. They pull out a sealed scroll. Your name is on it. You've been marked repeat disturber, probationary quiet. What does that mean? If you're recorded again, you're moved to the draft wing. No heat, no mattress, just a cheesecloth screen and a bucket of judgment. You shudder. What can I do, you ask. They smile sadly. You cannot snore, or at least fake it better. You're handed a small pouch. Inside, a goose feather, a sliver of lavender, and a wax earplug carved into the shape of a judge's frown. Call it insurance, the whisperer says. You nod. You return to your chamber that night more tense than ever. Every breath feels like a treasonous whisper. You stuff the feather under your tunic. Press the wax plug into your left ear. Smear lavender oil across your lip in the hope that it'll remind you not to breathe like an uncorked jug. And as you lie back, you repeat what the night whispers told you. Sleep lightly, breathe evenly, and if you must snore, do it in Latin. They respect that. You smile in the dark. And somehow, against the odds, you sleep. Not deeply, not long, but without incident. Or at least without parchment. For now. By morning, the castle has already started whispering about you again. Not openly, never openly, but in the way heads tilt when you pass. In the way stewards glance at your feet first, searching for night marks as if snoring leaves footprints. In the fact that someone has left a folded cloth over your mattress, embroidered with the words, "Silence is obedience." You don't touch it. You just sit on the edge of your straw bundle, blinking hard into the morning dimness, wondering how your body's most basic function has become your most dangerous trait. Then comes the snore scale review. It's mandatory. All sleepers, except those with noble titles or papal exemptions, must report to the breath hall once per week to be ranked. You think it's a joke at first, until you're standing in a cold room beside a wooden lectern labeled Respiratory Profiling Station, and a steward in a blue cap is motioning for you to lie on a wool mat under a velvet-lined bell. He nods once. Sleep now. You blink. You want me to recreate your conditions as authentically as possible. How? We've provided a synthetic duck pillow. Please simulate your usual comfort response. You lie down gingerly. The duck pillow is terrifying. It honks when squeezed and smells faintly of cloves and judgment. The steward leans in with a quill and an instrument shaped like a flattened trumpet. Begin. You close your eyes. Try to sleep. Obviously you don't. But the moment your breath slows even slightly, the steward nods and scribbles something on a scroll. He then strikes a small tuning fork and holds it near your face. You flinch. Vibration stable, he says. We'll proceed to pitch classification. What follows is the most surreal moment of your life. A panel of stewards discussing your sleep sounds like you're a new musical genre. There's a tremolo here, one says, tapping the parchment. Yes, says another. But note the upward arc. It's closer to a hopeful bleat than an aggressive moan. Would you call that a peasant's whistle or a low-born lament? They debate. You lie there trying not to exist. Eventually, you're handed a card. Level 2, inconsistent harmonics with brief honk tendency. You're assigned an emblem. It's stitched onto a ribbon, a sheep with a raised eyebrow. You're now officially registered, and the whispers only grow louder. That evening, someone pins a copy of your snore rank beside the main hearth. Someone else draws little musical notes coming out of your nostrils. You return to your sleeping chamber, clutching your ribbon like it might bite you, and waiting there is a new face. A woman with silver-streaked hair, seated upright, legs crossed, eyes like sharpened bells. She nods. You're the honk tendency. You sigh. Apparently. Good, we need a level 2. You frown. We? She gestures to the door. Come on. You follow her through a narrow passage behind the larder, past barrels of pickled leeks, through a hidden door that creaks open into a tiny stone room filled with steam and cushions. Inside are 5 others, all ranked, all branded, all wide awake. They call themselves the Sleepless Circle. We used to try to adapt, the silver-haired woman says. I wore wax mustaches, slept upside down, tried the anti-snore tease. A man grunts. I coated my uvula in beeswax once. You wince. They all nod, like it's a perfectly reasonable thing. But now, she continues, we're studying the rankings, finding the flaws, the inconsistencies. They show you a parchment. It's a full copy of the snore scale, the real one, not the public version. It includes such ridiculous categories as thunderous contempt, volume suggests anti-nobility sentiment, suspicious fluctuation may indicate dream rebellion, righteous rustle, often ignored in clergy members. One entry, barely legible, reads, if accompanied by whistling through the teeth, assume criminal inclination. You stare at it. Someone whispers, this is less about peace, more about power. The group believes that the snore laws are being used to suppress dissent, that sleepers are easier to control when they're ashamed of being alive at night. Snoring, one of them says, is the last honest thing left. You sit in stunned silence. You drink the tea they hand you. Lavender and something else. It tastes like memory and defiance. Then they ask the question, would you testify? You blink. In what? They lower their voices. There's going to be a tribunal, a real one, in public, not just for noise, but for truth. They want you to speak, to describe the duck pillow, to explain the bell, to tell the court how you were ranked, labeled, and nearly reassigned to the moaning wing. You nod, because it's time. Later that night, you try to sleep. You're not sure you can, but this time the fear isn't as strong. It's been diluted by laughter, by company, by a growing sense that maybe, just maybe, snoring isn't your failure. It's their absurdity. You press your cheek into the rough wool. You let your breath out like it belongs to you again. And if it whistles, let it whistle. Let it sing. By sunrise, the castle is already simmering with drama. You wake to find your mattress damp, not with anything sinister, but with dew. Somehow, overnight, someone left your chamber window wide open. A chill clings to your blanket, and your nose is stiff from too much cautious breathing. Next to your pillow sits a folded parchment. The seal is waxed in the shape of a tiny ear. You open it slowly, squinting in the faint morning light. Level 2, honk tendency. Please report to Archive Hall 7B for a review of Echo Law 11.2, Historical Precedents of Acoustic Treason. You blink. Archive Hall. You didn't even know there was a Hall 7. You pull on your boots with dread. The others in the chamber pretend not to watch you. Even the child with the level 2 from birth badge shifts in his straw and mutters, Godspeed. You make your way through the castle's oldest corridors, past dusty windows and forgotten tapestries. Archive Hall 7B is at the far edge of the East Wing, tucked behind a crumbling alcove and a statue of a knight sneezing into a scroll. The room smells of mold, mildew, and the unmistakable aroma of overcomplication. Inside, a steward in brown robes gestures you forward. He has a quill, two inkwells, and an expression that says he hasn't blinked since the last monarch reigned. Without a word, he places a large bound volume in front of you. On its spine, Echo Law 11.2, Codified Response to Involuntary Sonic Emissions. He clears his throat. Page 73. You flip. It's real. All of it. Every ridiculous whisper you've heard about the castle's snore laws is true, and then some. There are diagrams. One features a nobleman, mouth agape, with annotations pointing to dangerous intervals and untrustworthy ouvally curvature. Another details the Great Duke's misunderstanding. When in 1284, the then ruler mistook his cousin's sleep sounds for a siege drum and launched a 3-day war against his own stables. The steward speaks. This is why we must be vigilant. You raise an eyebrow. Because of a cousin with sinus issues? He frowns. Because snoring is unpredictable, and unpredictability is a threat. You almost laugh. Almost. But his face is the kind that sues people for chuckling in libraries. He begins to read aloud. Let it be known that any breath-borne resonance of volume or modulation sufficient to agitate tapestries, startle livestock, or summon defensive confusion shall henceforth be catalogued and discouraged. You glance up. Is that enforceable? He nods. By order of Echo Law, ratified by the Nightwatchers and approved by royal decree in the year of the Blanket Riot. Ah yes, the Blanket Riot. You've heard snippets. Apparently, after a particularly loud dreamer in the noble wing caused 7 candles to extinguish from sheer nasal force, guards removed every blanket in retaliation. People panicked. There were duels fought with pillows, stewards pelted with lavender sachets, and one woman who built an entire barricade out of stolen bolsters. The law passed swiftly after that. You close the book. This isn't law, you say, voice low. It's a bedtime curse. The steward shrugs. Laws are often born from discomfort. You think about that as you walk back through the corridor. About how something as deeply human, so ancient and unmanageable, as sleep became an act of defiance. That night, back in your chamber, the others wait for you to speak. You tell them everything. About Echo Law 11.2, about the sneezing statue, about the Duke's war with his own livestock, about the parchment trail that punishes anyone whose dreams dare to echo. They listen in stunned silence. Even the muttering woman forgets to count her breaths. Then Waxbeard, your original mattress nemesis, looks up and whispers, "So it's true." You nod. "All of it?" He frowns. "Then what are we still doing? Sleeping in shifts like we're convicts?" Another speaks. "Because no one wants to be first." That silences the room, until a small voice, barely audible, pipes up from the straw heap. The level 2 from birth, child. "I'll be first." You all look over. He shrugs. "I snore anyway. Might as well make it worth something." You laugh softly. Then Waxbeard cracks a grin. Then someone throws a pillow, gently but symbolically. For the first time in days, the room relaxes. You're still watched, still ranked, still cataloged in dusty books under some absurd label like respiratory disruptor, occasional rhythmic. But something has shifted. Later that night, when the candles are blown out and silence settles over the chamber, you hear it, a snore, a real one. Bold, honest, medium volume, Then another from the opposite corner. Like a chorus of civil disobedience, you smile into your rough wool pillow. And just before sleep claims you, you murmur, "Let the tapestries flutter." By the following afternoon, your name is everywhere. Not carved into stone or sung by bards, but scribbled in margins, murmured in passing, and, for reasons unclear, etched into a turnip by a cook who apparently enjoys root vegetables and resistance. Your crime, a single snore, let go without apology. Your legacy, in progress. But today your education continues. A steward appears during the midday meal. Boiled parsnip soup, cold cheese, one polite piece of bread, and hands you yet another summons. This one is scented faintly of despair and goose grease. You are to report to the Grand Echo Chamber. Why? To witness the reenactment, says the steward, of the Goose incident. You've heard whispers of it, of course. A bedtime tale spun in nervous tones. The Great Goose incident of year 143, when a single snore caused a violent uprising of castle geese, 3 structural injuries, and 1 nobleman to rethink indoor poultry entirely. You follow the steward through 3 winding staircases, 2 echoing corridors, and a door so heavily reinforced it might double as a dragon gate. Inside, an amphitheater of stone, mossy and cold, lit by a single beam of sunlight that makes everyone look like they're about to confess something terrible. At the center stands a stage. On it, a performer in full noble garb, lying supine on a replica feather mattress. He is snoring, loudly, rhythmically. With intention, a herald steps forward. This reenactment, commissioned by Echo Law Council 3A, seeks to remind citizens of the perils of unsanctioned residence. The snoring continues. Then on cue, a group of squires enters, each holding a wooden goose painted in various states of alarm. They honk. They flap. One topples dramatically. The audience watches solemn. A clerk reads from an ancient scroll. And lo, the snore did rattle the rafters. The geese, inflamed by uninvited cadence, did revolt. A feather storm ensued. The hall of ceremonial loaves was lost. Several lords wept. The snore actor adds a dramatic gargle. A steward scribbles something down. It would be hilarious if not for the sincerity. You glance at your fellow attendees. No one blinks. This is a sacred warning, not slapstick. When the reenactment ends, everyone is dismissed without clapping. You're handed a small pamphlet titled, "Proper Nocturnal Soundproofing, A Guide to Goose Prevention." Inside are tips like, apply lavender between toes for smoother airflow. Count backwards in Latin to discourage deep REM cycles. Avoid thinking of waterfowl before bed. You fold it carefully, tuck it into your belt. On your way back to your chamber, you pass the kitchens. There a cook, older, dough-covered, and seemingly immune to decorum, calls you over. "You're the one they're watching now," she says. You nod. She pulls a goose feather from behind her apron. "Found this on my windowsill, means trouble's brewing." You frown. "Is that superstition?" She leans in. "It's kitchen prophecy." You take the feather, pocket it, not for luck, just to feel like the world still makes symbols. That night, the wind howls. Not a poetic howl, a real one. Loud enough to rattle the shutters and blow someone's tunic off the drying line. It howls louder than any human snore could manage. And yet, no one says a thing. No steward rushes to the wall. No tribunal assembles. Because you realize the noise is only punished when it comes from you, from inside, from people not holding titles or ladles or scrolls. Nature is exempt. Power is silent. You lie awake thinking about that, about the difference between inconvenient and punishable, and you remember something from the reenactment. The nobleman in the story, the one whose snore triggered the Goose mutiny, he wasn't punished. He was relocated to a higher floor, given softer bedding, assigned a personal bard to hum counterharmonics while he slept. They wrote a law because of him, but not for him. You begin to see it now. The structure, the hierarchy. Snoring, like everything else in this castle, is political. It's not the volume. It's who's allowed to make it. Back in your chamber, someone new has arrived. A noble, slim, perfumed, wearing satin bedclothes stitched with embroidered stars. He sniffs, smells like rebellion. You say nothing. He claims the softest mattress. He hums while unpacking. And as he lies down, he emits a sleep sigh that might legally qualify as a minor harp solo. No one reports him. He's expressive, not disruptive. You go to sleep gripping the goose feather, and you dream, this time boldly, of birds in wigs testifying before a tribunal, of bards turning snore pitches into protest songs, of a queen just barely snoring, surrounded by a court pretending not to notice. And when you wake, you don't apologize for the breath that left your mouth in the night. You just exhale, because now you know it's never been about silence. It's about permission. You wake to murmurs. Not gossip exactly. More like cautious echoes. Castle walls bouncing back phrases like false pillow and planting the snore. It's the sound of suspicion winding through stone corridors, gathering speed like a wheelbarrow with a broken wheel. At breakfast, you overhear two stewards arguing softly near the porridge. He swears he heard the honk from that wing. Did you see the pillow yourself? Saw a feather. Could have been planted. That sounds like conspiracy talk. So does sleeping without license. You slowly lower your spoon. Across the room, Waxbeard raises one eyebrow. He mouths, "Told you." Because it's happening. The chamber pot conspiracy theory. Until now, everyone assumed snoring incidents were natural, unfortunate, but honest. A side effect of stress, architecture, and a nose with too many opinions. But now people are whispering that some snore accusations are staged. It begins with Lord Grimbold, a minor noble with a major tendency to sleep like he's negotiating a treaty in his dreams. One night, a steward claims to find evidence beside his mattress. A chamber pot, still warm, unemptied, faintly echoing, and a feather tucked inside. They say the feather was vibrating. Naturally, he's accused of level 4 disruptive harmony. But here's the thing, he swears it wasn't his feather. I sleep with sea spun, he says, imported, silent. That feather was planted. The castle erupts. Suddenly, every steward is reviewing old reports. Citizens start checking their beds before turning in. Feather counts become a thing. A rumor spreads that black market snores are being stored in empty jugs and released near targeted bunks. You don't believe it at first, until you wake one night to find a small brass bell, unrung, sitting right next to your mattress. You didn't put it there. No one else in your chamber admits to it. You quietly slide it into your sleeve and pretend not to notice the steward lingering in the corridor. Later that day, you're approached by a woman in a patchy cloak. Her hood is low and her boots are silent. "Are you the whistle?" she asks. You blink. "Excuse me?" The honk tendency, the sheep emblem. Yes, she nods. "Good. You're going to want this." She hands you a packet sealed with wax shaped like a sideways eye. Inside a list. Names. Each name is followed by a date, a mattress assignment, and a note. Planted bell. Dripped honey near mouth to mimic dream slobber. Or the especially sinister, loose straw displacement. Probable chamber pot frame. The list is long. Too long. These are the target, she says. All falsely accused, all silenced. You look up. What is this? She glances around. The Feather Underground. You laugh. She doesn't. We help sleepers, real sleepers, not nobles. Not those fake jaw silencers with their perfumed linen and official pardons. People like us, the vulnerable, the nasal. You nod, stunned. She pulls a bundle from her pack. Inside, woolen nose covers, slumber shields, basically eye masks stitched with legal loopholes, and tiny scrolls that say, "Just because I breathe loudly doesn't mean I'm plotting treason." She explains their plan: to infiltrate the castle's Snore enforcement office, smuggle out falsified evidence logs, and expose the ranking system as corrupt. You ask what they need from you. She smirks. Proof, your snore, unedited. You stare at her. You want me to record it? She pulls out a device, a dream jug, supposedly enchanted by a bored monastery tinker. It captures faint sound and remembers tone. You're to sleep with it next to your mouth. No interference. No restraint. If the snore is real, it proves authenticity. If it's faked, they'll know. You take it. That night, back in your chamber, you nestle the jug beside you. Waxbeard eyes it. Is that for soup? You say nothing. You lie down. And you breathe. This time, intentionally. Honestly, your snore escapes. Not dramatic, not aggressive, just real. The next morning, the jug is warm. You hand it off in the corridor. No one sees, except a steward. He watches your hands too carefully. And later, when you return to your bunk, your blanket is gone, replaced by a folded note. Sleep is not a right. It is a luxury, one that may be revoked. You report it. The steward shrugs. Possession of unauthorized pottery. You sleep cold, but the jug is gone and in safe hands. That night, you find a message scratched into the underside of your bed frame. We heard it. It's beautiful. You don't know whether to laugh or cry, so you just inhale slowly and let it out as loud as you dare. Because they're listening, but now so are your allies. You begin to notice them. The tiny warnings sewn into places only the desperate find. Corners of tapestries, the underside of chair cushions, etched into soot-darkened beams just above eye level. One day you look up from your porridge and realize someone has embroidered "breathe carefully but not falsely" into the hem of the dining hall's wall hanging. Another time, as you lift your chamber pot, a task you regret instantly, you spot a single line carved faintly beneath the basin. The quiet shall inherit the pillow. It spreads like moss. Not loudly, not in rebellion, just present. And as your eyes sharpen, you begin to catch the signs of the others. The ones like you. Sleepers without privilege, breathers without pardon. A wink from a stable boy who hands you an extra bit of straw. A napkin folded thrice, passed by a baker with no words. A carved goose feather discreetly tucked behind a beam near the eastern stairwell. You're not alone. But the stewards are adapting too. This morning, one confiscated a guest's slipper for having smug aura. Another was fined a quarter penny for blinking too slowly during prayers. They're looking for excuses now. You try to remain inconspicuous, but someone's noticed you. It begins when the steward assigned to your corridor, Grevin, narrow-shouldered, voice like a wet scroll, starts lingering by your door. Routine audits, he says every night. He smells of vinegar and unslept dreams. One evening, he finds your bed empty for 5 minutes and leaves a note. Where is the breather? Has he dissolved? Another time, he gently shakes your mattress, waits for you to open one eye, then whispers, "Are you attempting to mimic silence? Or is this actual compliance?" You fake a cough. He nods approvingly. Well done. But soon it escalates. One dawn, Grevin appears with a sound certifier, a small wooden board with a wheel on it. He asks you to breathe onto it so it can register huff density. You comply. It clicks once, then twice. He frowns. You're up to 1.8. That's dangerously near a reverberant sigh. That night, your blanket is replaced with a cheesecloth. No explanation. Just a frown and a signature on a confiscation form labeled excessive warmth encouragement. You begin to carry your own quilt, tucked in a satchel by day, hidden behind the grain sacks in the pantry by night. A steward finds it and burns it in a public brazier to cleanse the air. Your heart burns hotter than the wool. The following day, someone leaves a gift under your plate in the dining hall. A wax-stamped scroll, tiny, no bigger than a thumb. Inside 3 words. Meet us tonight. There's no location, but you've become good at reading the castle's forgotten margins. That night, you find a loose flagstone beside the armory, a corner where the draft flows too regularly for it to be natural. You lift it. Beneath, a rope ladder and a candle stub. You descend into darkness, then warmth. You find a small chamber lit by a single beeswax taper. 5 figures wait, seated on upturned barrels. One of them you know, Feather Underground. The others, quiet, older, eyes sharp from years of watching without being seen. One speaks. You've stirred attention. You nod, not on purpose. They nod back. That's why it's working. They show you a new project, a tapestry, half finished, soft gold threads, sheep's wool dyed in rust and indigo. It depicts not kings or saints, but sleepers, villagers under trees, bakers napping in ovens, children dreaming of castles made of quilts. At the bottom, stitched in silver, the breathless shall not bear their crown. You ask what it is. They say a record for when history forgets the sound we weren't allowed to make. They want you on it. They've reserved a corner, an empty mattress, unoccupied, but embroidered with a small sheep curled beside a candle. You say yes. Then they give you the next task. Deliver a message. To a steward, a real one, embedded, sympathetic. You're to bring them a scroll wrapped in crusted bread. It's not code, just camouflage. Stewards eat bread. No one questions that. You do it at dinner. You walk calmly across the hall, slide the bread onto a wooden tray. The steward, a man with a crooked nose and ink-stained sleeves, blinks once. That's it. You walk away. Later that night, a knock. Soft, intentional. A scroll slipped beneath your door. The queen dreams. She dreams often and loudly. You read it twice. The queen. Snoring? The woman who signed Echo Law herself. Could it be? You begin to remember what the Feather Underground said. The higher the tower, the less they monitor. And maybe that's the secret. Maybe it was never about the noise, but about where the noise comes from. You lie down on your cold straw mattress, staring at the damp stone ceiling. And somewhere, far above, behind thick velvet curtains and guarded corridors, a monarch sighs into sleep, unpunished, unranked, unrecorded. Your breath catches. Because now you understand the next part of the story. And it starts with a single question. What happens when the loudest sleeper sits on the quietest throne? You don't speak of it aloud, but the scroll's message. The queen dreams. She dreams often and loudly. Has nested in your mind like a feather tucked beneath the world's most hypocritical pillow. You go about your duties as a castle guest/suspect/sleeper of interest. You take smaller bites at breakfast. You murmur politely when questioned. You nod enthusiastically at lectures on breath dignity. But all the while you are rehearsing a plan. Because if the queen snores, actually snores, and the court covers for her, then the very foundation of echo law begins to sound suspiciously like a bedtime joke told by someone in power and never questioned again. The next morning, you are summoned to the Court of Sleep Conduct. You didn't request this audience. A steward escorts you past the usual grim corridors and up a staircase you've never climbed before. One lined with portraits of judges with matching downturned mouths and aggressively pressed linens. At the top, a large oaken door carved with a single phrase. The breath is public. Inside, 7 judges in robes that resemble upturned mattress corners sit at a crescent-shaped bench. The floor is velvet. The air smells faintly of mint and judgment. A clerk reads the charges. Suspicion of sleep agenda collusion. Unauthorized sound embroidery. Improper pillow maintenance. And possible bread-based message smuggling. You blink. I just ate the crust. The head judge stares over her half-moon glasses. Did you, though? Before you can answer, the door opens again. And in strides Lady Halberdina of the East Wing, tall, angular, and wearing what appears to be a ceremonial nose funnel. She clears her throat and sets down a small leather-bound case. I will represent the accused, she says. You've never seen her before. You're not sure she's even real. But the judges allow it, perhaps because her title is embroidered in actual gold thread on her collar. She opens the case, pulls out a stack of scrolls, and begins a speech that sounds like it was composed inside a very expensive dream. We cannot persecute breath. We cannot criminalize unconsciousness. The law claims to protect slumber, yet punishes its very nature. Consider this. If the queen in all her finery and rest issues a sonic yawn upon the 4th toll of night, would you fine her? Of course not. You'd compose a hymn about it. The judges murmur. You are stunned, she continues. This castle is not silent. It is selective. And the ones who suffer, the low breathers, the poor sighers, the woolless and weary. She slams a scroll onto the floor. I submit this, a petition for auditory equality backed by 14 signatories and 1 dreaming goat. The goat part may be symbolic. The judges call for a recess. Outside, you turn to Lady Halberdina. Why are you helping me? She smirks. Because I sleep with a snore that rattles candlesticks. I just happen to do it 3 towers up, in a room no one audits. You blink. You're sure. You're one of them. She nods. The cushioned class, but not the complicit kind. She pulls a pin from her robe. A golden feather, broken at the shaft. The Queen Han, she says, has an arrangement. A hush tax. You nearly laugh. That's not a thing. She raises an eyebrow. It's a line item on the steward's scrolls. Hidden under velvet maintenance. She pays in silk, in secrets, in silence. Your mind reels. The tribunal reconvenes. This time, it's not a verdict they issue. It's a reassignment. You are no longer in the shared chambers. You've been relocated to the quiet wing. You've heard rumors. They say it's where sound goes to die. You arrive by torchlight. The door creaks open by itself. Inside, a corridor of pale stone, hung with cheesecloth and lined with velvet ropes that do not block passage, but slow it. The air smells like starch and anxiety. Your room is a niche, not a full room, just a shallow space in the wall, curtained off, with a single mat and a whispering sign. Volume above 7 will be noted. You lie down. The silence is violent. You hear your heartbeat. your thoughts, the shifting of your toes in your socks. You hear time, and somewhere in the distance, you think you hear it. Just faintly, a snore. Not yours. Delicate, royal, wrapped in silk and buried in power. And suddenly you understand everything. Why the laws exist. Why the pillows were taken. Why bells are banned and feather smugglers sentenced to mill duty. Because sleep is power, and loud sleep, that's power you can hear. You roll over, gripping your blanket. Standard issue, thin, approved. You breathe. You let it go just a little too loud. You wait. No one comes. Not this time. Because this time, you're not just a suspect. You're a signal. And someone, somewhere, heard you. The quiet wing begins to change you. Not in the poetic self-improvement sense. More like the way a seller changes apples. Slower, softer, a bit suspect around the edges. Everything here is hushed. The walls are thick. The doors glide open on oiled hinges. Even the stewards wear slippers so padded they appear to levitate slightly as they float past your cot at scheduled intervals. You learn quickly that speaking above a whisper gets you frowned at. Coughing is considered a breach of trust. Laughing, dangerous. Last week, someone giggled in their sleep and was reassigned to the Tower of Reflective Inhalation. You try not to make waves. But waves apparently don't need volume to exist. It starts with a crumb, not yours, someone else's. A small trail leading from the food tray in the corridor to one of the sleep niches. By morning, that sleeper is gone, replaced by a scroll pinned to the wall. Unapproved snacking, potential sound escalation, room reassigned. You begin sleeping with one eye open. Literally, it hurts. Your dreams when they arrive are tentative, shallow things, mostly about feathers, and occasionally a very loud goat yelling into a well. But even in silence, the castle pulses with activity. A steward whispers to you, yes, whispers, that the queen has not been seen in days, that her personal sleep chamber has been triple sealed, that a steward emerged from her tower last night, weeping and covered in goose down. No one knows what it means, but word spreads. You receive a note tucked into your sleeve by a passing scullery maid. Moonrise, Hall of Drapes, bring the sheep pin. You go. Of course you go. The Hall of Drapes isn't actually a hall. It's a storage closet that once held ceremonial curtains, but now serves as the meeting point for the Feather Underground's most trusted circle. Inside, 7 people. Lady Halberdina is among them. She's removed her gold thread collar, wears plain wool, still has better posture than anyone alive. She smiles. Well, so we're ready. You frown. Ready for what? She unrolls a map, not of the castle, of the Queen's Tower, floor by floor, room by room, corridors, vents, guard schedules, muffling charms, the dream archive. You stare at her. You've planned a break-in? She nods. To prove she snores. You blink. That's ridiculous. No, she says, it's justice. The others nod. One man with a hat shaped like an apologetic pastry adds, she's the cornerstone. If the queen snores openly, loudly, without consequence, then the entire doctrine of echo law collapses. You still hesitate. Someone else speaks. You've seen the tribunal, felt the cheesecloth, lost your blanket. You've been ranked, shamed, silenced. You are our loudest quiet voice. You agree. With only a little dread. The plan is simple. Well, relatively. During the third sleep bell, when the castle's noise enchantments are temporarily lifted for rug maintenance, 2 of you will slip into the queen's wing using a forged blanket inventory scroll. One of you will smuggle in a snore recorder, a bowl-shaped brass device enchanted by two retired minstrels and an especially tired badger. You will capture one snore, just one, and release it. Not immediately, that would be suicide, but slowly, through scrolls, tapestries, theater. Let the court feel the hypocrisy, says Halberdina. You're assigned a partner. Rollo. Yes, that Rollo. The man who once hummed about turnips in his sleep. He grins. Ready to make noise? You nod. On the night of the mission, you dress simply. Wool tunic, no jewelry, no dignity. You carry the forged scroll in one hand and the recorder, wrapped in lavender cloth, in the other. At the checkpoint near the Queen's Wing, the steward doesn't even glance at you. Inventory? You hand him the scroll. He squints. Velvet Restoration, Layer 2. He sighs. Fine, try not to wake her. You both nearly burst out laughing. Try not to wake her. You enter. It's quiet, profoundly so. Even your heartbeat sounds hesitant. The Queen's chamber is enormous, curtained in white, scented faintly of rosewater and denial. You see her, curled in a crescent of cushions. Her crown sits beside her, tilted like it too, is tired of pretending. You place the recorder near her face. Wait, wait, wait. And there it is, soft, but real, a snore. It rises like a confused violin, slides into a tremble, then settles back into sleep. Rollo whispers, we got it. You retreat, back through corridors, back through stone, back to safety. 2 hours later, in the Hall of Drapes, you play the recording. Everyone listens. No one speaks. The Queen snores. The Queen snores. The Queen snores. You feel it crackling in the air. Everything that was once sacred about silence begins to fray. Because the loudest law was always based on the quietest lie. And now it's on tape. The next morning, the castle is pretending harder than usual. The bread at breakfast is suddenly crustless. The stewards are smiling like their teeth have unionized. One servant loudly announces, what a quiet and orderly night we've all had. How lovely it is to wake up refreshed and unbothered. You know what that means. They heard it. Maybe not all of it. Maybe just a snip, a breath, a note of that soft, treasonous snore that now resides securely in the snore recorder under lock, scroll, and 2 layers of turnip flour at the bottom of a baker's barrel. But the tension is thick. You're summoned to the Echo Compliance Office for a routine temperament inquiry. You're sat in a windowless room with a chair that squeaks like it's considering betrayal. Across from you sits Steward Grevin, flanked by 2 others, one with the unfortunate mustache of a man who has never been hugged, and another who jots notes with alarming ferocity. They ask you casual questions. How did you sleep? Did you notice any unusual tones in the air? Are you familiar with musical notation, particularly in a subconscious capacity? You answer carefully. Eventually, Grevin leans in. Do you believe the Queen is above the law? There it is. You pause. Tilt your head, smile like you've just tasted soup and you're not sure how you feel. I believe she's within the law, you say. Every breath of it. They stare. You stare back. They release you without ceremony, but when you return to your chamber, your mattress has been replaced. It's thinner, lumpier. It smells like it once lost a fight with a cabbage. Your cheesecloth has been upgraded to rice paper. You've been marked again, but you also receive another message tucked inside your worn shoe. The tapestries are listening now. You make your way to the Hall of Drapes after dark. There, Halberdina and the others are waiting, wide-eyed, giddy, terrified. Because the Snore scroll has gone live. Not all of it, just a textual transcription posted on the rear door of the scullery. Honoree rises like distant thunder, sweetened by royal honey. Underneath, no name, just a single embroidered crown. People have noticed. You pass two guards whispering about the secret singer of the royal night. Someone saw a stable hand humming the Snore cadence while mucking stalls. It's spreading, but so are the consequences. By midweek, 3 known whisperers have been reassigned to the Echo Mines, a labyrinthine basement where breath is monitored and repurposed into air-freshening scrolls. One baker is punished for using bread that crunched. A lute player is fined for over-vibrato. A child is scolded for whimpering during a nightmare. You realize they're not just defending the Queen's silence. They're fortifying it. Halberdina proposes the next step, public performance, a play, a reenactment. Not of the Queen herself, too risky, but of a mythical royal who snored and was still beloved. A figure of fiction. Obviously, they name her Queen Dormina of the Pillowed Throne. She snores, proudly, lovingly. Her dreams in the play shape policy and mend treaties. The underground distributes roles. You're cast as the herald. Rollo gets to play the crown goose. It debuts at the laundry square during folding hour. 50 people show up. By the end, half are weeping, the other half pretending not to. No one reports it. But the next morning, a steward is posted outside every laundry room. One of them sings under their breath, "Queen Dormina, sleep profound. Let your dreams reshape the crown." You don't know who wrote that line. You don't ask. The castle's tempo has changed. Whispers hum louder than bells. You see symbols drawn in chalk near the well, pillows embroidered with "Let her dream" in silver thread. The snore is no longer a curse. It's an anthem, a secret hymn. One evening, as you pass a group of guards, you hear it. A soft, rhythmic hum, familiar, imperfect. They're trying to mimic the Queen, but they call it the hush hymn. Even those in power are cracking. Even silence has limits. Back in your chamber, you lie down. You think of your journey, from mattress pariah to underground herald of audible truth. You think of the recorder, of the goat that once yelled in your dreams, of how Wax Beard now snores proudly and no one dares stop him. And somewhere in the castle, high above the quiet wing, behind layers of velvet and protocol, the Queen still breathes in her sleep, still snores, still rules, and now so do you. In your own small, rumbling, honest way, you smile, you snore, and this time it feels like victory. They say silence is golden, but by now you know, it's just well-funded. The Queen's hush tax, the tribunal's velvet cushions, the echo-softened stairwells. All of it carefully engineered to make noise look like the enemy. But outside the walls of the throne room, something is stirring, or more accurately, snoring. The feather underground is growing. Their reach now includes 2 butlers, a half-retired night watchman with a limp and a grudge, and, shockingly, a steward from the Echo Tribunal itself who claims, in hushed tones, "I once fined a man for sneezing during a moon eclipse, and I haven't slept right since." You've become a symbol, not a big one, more like a footnote in a bedtime rebellion. But still, people glance your way differently now. Less suspicion, more recognition. A stable hand tips his hat and mutters, "Honest breather." A maid hands you a folded napkin bearing an embroidered sheep gently blowing a trumpet. Even Rollo has started using your name like a verb. "Don't get too bold," he says to a new recruit. "Don't go full you." You take it as a compliment. Plans are intensifying. The next move is bold, theatrical, and almost certainly criminal. A mock tribunal is to be staged at the castle courtyard. The charge, unlawful repression of natural sleep behaviors. The defendant, a stuffed pillow stitched with royal insignia. The prosecutor, Rollo, wearing a powdered wig made from old mop heads. You play the defense. The courtroom is a half circle of laundry baskets. An audience of 30 and a very confused goat gathers quietly as Rollo delivers his opening remarks. My lords and ladies, this pillow did snore. Loudly, proudly, in goose-adjacent cadences, and it was silenced, fluffed into submission, exiled to a cupboard. He paces dramatically. You counter. And I say, this pillow dreamed. This pillow held the head of a queen. It knows secrets, and it knows. Noise does not equal guilt. The crowd is captivated. At the play's climax, a young apprentice runs forward and gently hugs the pillow. Someone starts humming the hush hymn, then clapping. Real cautious, nervous clapping, but clapping nonetheless. The crowd disperses before guards arrive. No one is arrested. That night, every chamber in the East Wing finds a parchment under its door. Let what is muffled be heard again. The queen remains silent, publicly, but her guards are replaced. Her steward starts wearing cotton in his ears. Rumors swirl that she's been moved to the mountain retreat to recover from sonic unease. A euphemism, if ever there was one. At the tribunal, they respond in the only way they know how. Escalation. A new decree is posted across the castle. Echo Law Addendum 1432b. Intentional resonance will be considered equivalent to passive rebellion. No one knows what it means, but they know who it targets. You, Halberdina pulls you aside. You need to go. You laugh. I just got here. She doesn't. You've stirred too much. We can't protect you anymore. Rollo offers his hay cart. It's disguised as a cheese delivery. You decline because something else is happening. You can feel it in the way stewards hesitate now, in the way nobles clear their throats before speaking, in the way a boy was recently seen blowing bubbles in the reflecting pool while softly mumbling, "Honk for freedom." The tide is shifting. One night, you're called urgently, quietly to the Chamber of Pillows. It's not what it sounds like. It's the Feather Underground's new base. They've acquired dozens of confiscated bedding items and turned them into insulation for a secret meeting space beneath the kitchens. It smells like rebellion and duck down. Halberdina stands at the center. She holds a scroll. The queen, she says, has requested an audience. Silence. You're kidding. I'm not. She knows. She knows everything. Apparently a steward, an old one, with shaky hands and no ambition, played the snore recorder for her. She listened, laughed once, then asked if it could be set to music. Her reply, a formal summons, not to a tribunal, not to an interrogation, but to tea. The Feather Underground panics. Trap, someone hisses. She'll arrest him. She'll knight him. She'll make him court breather. You don't know what to expect, but you say yes. Of course you do, because this entire mess started with a snore. And maybe, just maybe, it ends with a conversation. Tea with the queen is not something one prepares for. Not really. You can practice breathing in time with a clock. You can rehearse polite phrases like, "I beg your majesty's pardon," or "These crumpets are a revelation." You can even try to memorize the snore recorder's settings in case she asks how to replay herself. But nothing prepares you for standing in the outer chamber of the royal tower, holding a borrowed napkin, trying not to faint, A steward stands beside you. She's wearing a gown stitched entirely in silence. No ruffles, no hems, just smooth, slippered intent. She nods once. The door creaks. You step through. The Queen's tea room is smaller than you imagined. Cozy, even. There's a fireplace already lit, a round table dressed in cream linen, a silver tea set humming slightly. 2 chairs, 1 crown, and her. She's older than the portraits make her seem, but not frail. She holds her teacup like a weapon and wears robes the color of deep night with just a sliver of feather tucked into her collar. She doesn't rise, she gestures to the empty chair. You sit, silently. Then she speaks. Do you know how long I've snored? You weren't expecting that. You shake your head. Since I was 7, she says, terribly, like a bagpipe possessed by a goose. You nod carefully. Do you know how many people have ever told me that to my face? Again, you shake your head. 2, my brother and you. You blink. She pours tea. The steam curls upward like a reluctant confession. You think I built these laws to hide? She asks. You open your mouth, then pause. I think you built them, you say slowly, so no one would ask the real question. She nods. Which is? You breathe. Why can't you just sleep? The Queen exhales. Not a sigh, something deeper. Something that's been coiled around her lungs for years. Because sleep is vulnerability, she says. And noise? Noise is proof that we are not in control. She sips her tea, doesn't speak again for a while. You sit in the quiet, unsure if you've already been executed politically. Then she says, You're not wrong. She places a velvet pouch on the table. It jingles softly. I've paid the hush tax for 23 years, she says. Paid it so no one would dare ask why the laws only mattered for the poor, the tired, the honest. You nod. The pouch stays between you. I listened to the recording, she says, twice. The second time I cried. You wait. Because I sounded free, she continues. And I haven't been that in longer than I can count. Then she lifts her eyes. They think I summoned you to punish you. You nod. Yes, but I didn't. She smiles. I summoned you to ask a favor. You blink. A favor? She nods. The laws are too big now. Too tangled. I can't unwrite them without backlash. I'd lose half the nobility, 1/3 of the guards, 2/3 of the mattress guild. You squint. There's a mattress guild? Oh yes, quite violent. You sit up straighter. So what do you need? She pushes a scroll toward you. I need a new story, she says. You unroll it. It's a script. A play. She's written a first draft. It's terrible. But it's honest. Titled The Snore That Saved a Kingdom. In it, a monarch dreams so loudly that the walls crack, and the people rejoice because now they too can breathe as they are. She sips tea. I want to perform it. You gape. Publicly? She nods. In 3 days during the Feast of Blankets. That's the holiday where people traditionally lay silent under embroidered covers for a full hour to honor the foundation of echo law. You've always hated it. I want to rewrite the feast, she says, and I need your help. You're shaking now, not with fear, with possibility. Rollo is going to have a heart attack. So will the tribunal. You smile. I'll do it. Good. Done, she says. She hands you a pin. Golden. Simple, shaped like a sheep curled beside a trumpet. My private seal, she says. Use it wisely. Then she leans back and quietly, mischievously lets out a snore. Right there. Awake. Eyes open. A practiced snore. You both laugh. Later, as you descend the tower steps, past portraits that no longer seem so self-important, a steward bows as you pass. You nod back. Something has changed. The castle knows. They all know. And in 3 days, the queen will snore on stage. Publicly, legally, loudly. And you'll be there, script in hand, ready to turn centuries of shame into one glorious, glorious exhale. 3 days pass like a held breath. And when it's finally released, it comes not as a whisper, but as the sound of 1,000 woolen blankets being lifted at once. A rustle that signals the end of silence, the start of something stranger, warmer, freer. The Feast of Blankets has never looked like this before. Where once nobles stood in stiff, ceremonial rows, faces powdered into statues, now they sit on cushions, actual cushions, stuffed, colorful, disrespectful, according to 2 retired stewards who muttered something about too much visual softness. Where once silence reigned for an entire hour, broken only by the subtle weeping of stiff joints and suppressed coughs, now there's music, a lute, a flute, a trio of clarinet-like pipes made from roasted parsnips, a Rollo innovation, don't ask. And center stage, a velvet platform, a low curtain, and a banner that reads, "The snore that saved a kingdom, a dream in 3 breaths." The audience is half castle, half curious villager. The tribunal sits in the front row, forced into attendance by a royal decree, each of them clutching ceremonial scrolls that make them look like grumpy narwhals. You stand backstage adjusting the final props. A pillow, a stuffed goose, a tiny fake crown for the sheep who'll be playing the role of General Slumber. Rollo appears beside you, panting slightly, wig askew. "I dropped my lines." "You have 1 line." He nods solemnly. "And I dropped it." You look past the curtain. There she is, the queen, dressed not in robes but in sleepwear. Tasteful, royal blue with silver-threaded clouds. Her hair is braided with lavender. She carries the snore recorder like a scepter. She gives you a look. It says, "We do this now." You nod. The curtain rises. The play begins. Act 1, the noisy cradle. A narrator, you, introduces the kingdom of Pillowmere, ruled by Queen Dormina, whose dreams shake the mountains and lull the rivers. Rollo honks nobly as the crown goose. Someone claps early, they're forgiven. Act 2, the tribunal of blank faces. Here Queen Dormina is summoned for excessive rumbling. She pleads her case. "If I dream in silence, I wake in fear." Gasps. Soft weeping from the second row. A tribunal actor stands to deliver his condemnation but sneezes midway. The audience erupts in delighted horror. He improvises. "Let the record show that sneeze was a metaphor." You beam. And then Act 3, the queen sleeps. On stage. Publicly. A silence falls, not forced, not stiff. Expectant. She inhales, exhales, and then a snore. Clear, delicate, undeniable. The snore recorder plays it back. Amplified, slightly embellished, looped once for rhythm. It's beautiful. Somewhere near the tribunal, a steward drops his quill. A child begins clapping. A noblewoman swoons slightly. The crowd rises, not in horror, in applause. The queen rises too, smiling, no longer hiding. She takes a bow. No crown, just her breath. Unapologetic. After the curtain falls, everything happens at once. The tribunal files out stiffly, faces pale, scrolls clutched like flotation devices. The audience surges forward, asking questions, offering thanks. A woman hugs you. A bard proposes a song cycle. A man offers you a goose. You accept none of it. You just stand there, watching the queen step off the stage, eyes soft. "Thank you," she whispers. Well, for what? For reminding me that being loud doesn't mean being wrong. That night, the Feather Underground meets for the last time. Not because they're disbanding, but because they've changed form. No more hiding under staircases. Now they meet in the newly designated Hall of Breath, formerly the East Wing's old complaint ledger room. The walls are hung with tiny tapestries, pillows embroidered with phrases like, "Let us lie and let us breathe. Noise is not rebellion, it's life. I snore, therefore I dream." You're offered a title, Royal Whisper Laureate. You decline. You suggest something else. Just a pillow, simple, warm, non-explosive. They laugh. Later, as you lie in bed, your actual bed restored, upgraded, fluffed, you listen. Not for danger, but for company. Waxbeard snuffles like a dog chasing dignity. Rollo wheezes through his nose like a balloon being stepped on by kindness. The sheep mutters softly in its sleep. You're not sure if sheep dream, but if they do, this one's probably galloping through fields of applause. You close your eyes, and when your snore finally comes, you let it ring. Soft, honest, unpunished. Because in this castle now, you're not alone. And the walls? They're listening, but this time, they're smiling. The new age of breathing begins slowly. There is no official decree, no grand announcement from a tower. Just small, peculiar changes that ripple outward through the castle like the quietest revolution ever whispered between bedsheets. First, the stewards, where once they paraded with scrolls and quills ready to document any unsuspecting yawn, now they mostly stand. Not awkwardly, not proudly, just there, present, watching, but with less twitch. One even smiles. Another sneezes and doesn't apologize. That might be progress. Second, the bedding. The cheesecloths vanish overnight. No explanation. In their place, actual blankets. Modest ones, sure. Coarse wool, mismatched patches, but warm, intentional, earned. Yours has a tiny embroidered sheep in the corner, ears perked, eyes closed. You name it Mildred. Third, the wall scrolls. They begin to change. No longer filled with punishments and ratios, but now with things like preferred sleeping positions by region and songs to accompany non-political snoring. One even reads, "This hall now honors all sleep, whether snug, shaky, or symphonic." The queen holds true to her promise. During the next Feast of Blankets, she performs the Hush Hymn on a lyre shaped like a goose, while the entire castle lies bundled in warmth and murmuring joy. No silence, just soft, sleeping noise. The Echo Tribunal, after an uncomfortable 6 weeks of losing relevance, voluntarily reorganizes into the Council of Coziness. They now oversee pillow distribution and hot cider safety. You meet with Halberdana one last time. Not in a broom closet, not behind a tapestry, but in the main garden, under the blooming lavender. She's wearing slippers. You're both eating buns that used to be illegal during rest periods. "I never thought we'd win," you say. She nods. "We didn't win. We breathed differently." And someone finally noticed. You clink teacups. Later, back in your chamber, you see it. The final note, left on your pillow, folded like a fan. You were once ranked level 2 honk tendency. You are now classified level 1 dream conductor. May your sleep lead others home. You place it inside your trunk, next to the now silent snore recorder. And then you lie down. Not because you're afraid of being overheard, but because you're finally gloriously tired. And the castle sighs with you. You can hear it now. Beneath the walls, behind the stones, in the way the windows settle. the sound of everyone exhaling at once. It's no longer a risk, it's a lullaby. You close your eyes, you drift, and in your dreams, there's laughter and linen and geese that never honk unless invited. So now, dear listener, the castle fades. Its walls soften, its torches dim. The corridor echoes retreat into hush. That queen who once paid gold for silence now hums her own lullaby as she walks the tower stairs. Even the sheep seem satisfied, tail twitching to a rhythm only the contented understand. Your mattress beneath you is no longer straw or stone, but something warmer like memory folded into wool. And above you, the ceiling of this odd and ancient place becomes a sky, gentle, limitless, filled with the quiet dreams of every honest sleeper who once feared their own breath. No tribunals tonight, no stewards with quills, just you in the soft hum of comfort. Inhale slowly, let the air fill your chest like a kind promise. Exhale even slower. Let the story melt from your shoulders. There's no need to prove anything now. You don't have to tuck your snores behind curtains or disguise your sighs as coughs. You are safe here, safe to drift, safe to snore, safe to be entirely human in the stillness of sleep. Let the night cradle you. Let your thoughts stretch like cats in sunlight. And if, in the quiet of your slumber, a breath escapes louder than planned, that's okay. Here in this castle, that's called dreaming. End of script. Sweet dreams.